Ladies and gentlemen, K-Kim here. Welcome to the daily update. You guys had a good day trading today. Market is up about 0.8% on the S&P. We did see NASDAQ leading the market yet again. NASDAQ is up about 2%. We got I think transport was lagging today. Transport is down about 1.5%. Other indices pretty much flat. I think the banks were down about 0.5% today. So NASDAQ continues to lead, and with that, S&P was managed to make a move today with a 0.8% gain there. So it looks like this was where we closed yesterday or Friday, right? On Friday, this is where it closed on Friday around 321.67 or so. It looks like we slightly gapped down. This is where it opened, and then the first hour of trading, first minutes and stuff, we looks like we did see a pullback, and then we kind of got back up there, and then we saw a thrust throughout the first hour. And then a second hour, we pushed higher. We see a continuation pattern there. And looks like we did get, with that move, the second hour move, the price was able to reclaim and clear that 322 level, which has been acting as resistance, right? That turned into some bearish move there afterwards. But we hit that level quite a bit, that 322, right? It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But bulls relentlessly came back to break above it, right? Came back to break above it, and then came back again to break above it on Friday. We didn't break above it. Finally, looks like the first and second hour, we did break above it today, right? And then that was a third hour, right? And then a fourth hour continuation to the upside. And 323 is an important level. We'll talk about that because there was another resistance there at 323. We cleared that again on the fifth hour, and sixth hour we did see final hour rally there all the way up to the gap area, right? That 325 area. And then we pull back a little bit. So here, let me zoom out so you guys can see that 323 level. Right there. So that 323 level was right here. This was early June highs, right? That we saw that thrust, and that was that move. And as of today, we've made higher high, and that is very important. This is very, very important piece of information. I want you to understand that we made a higher high here, right? Because since the COVID plunge, this was the high, that swing high. For the fact that the price made higher high, right? How long did it take, right? This was early June. We're kind of late July. So about a month and a half. It took a month and a half to get back up here and cultivated higher high. And when you see market continuing to cultivate and establish higher highs and higher lows, we call that what? An uptrend. And when we're in an uptrend, you want to continue to give benefit of the doubt to the buyers in the overall sense, right? In the overall long-term, mid-term sense. So we pull back because there's a resistance there. What resistance did we have in that level at 325? That's a gap area, right? That's a pretty decent sized gap down. This was in late February, right? That was a very first early gap down we saw before the massacre in March, right? And there were many, many gaps throughout the March. The market was gapping down almost every day. And buyers have gone up and filled all of those gaps. And this is the one last gap, sizable gap, decent size down gap that buyers are preparing to fill. We got a little gap here, but it's not gonna be a big deal. There's gonna be a little gap, probably not a huge deal, but this gap is a decent size gap, right? I kind of want to see how much that was, like the 2% gap down. Yeah, so about 2.3% gap down. So it's a decent sized gap down. So when you're dealing with a gap that size, it is going to make things hectic for the buyers unless we see some kind of FOMO panic buying. Unless we see something like that, unless we see some big bullish move, maybe even a gap up tomorrow or something like that, maybe even turn this into an island, you know what I mean? Unless we see some kind of jump start, some big bullish run, like some long bullish moves, if we start to fizzle around here, get up a little bit, we're gonna see some volatilities in this vicinity. You know, looking at the oscillator here, also oscillator is kind of getting into that. Bulls are kind of getting tired, but you know, you remember bulls have built that momentum here. Bulls have built that momentum, right? And last time we saw something like that was in May through June, right? When we saw that big rally there. And remember, we got into overbought level right here, see? And we saw another push. That's a big push from here to here. That's almost big as this gap down here, which means buyers are getting tired. But because we've just made new highs since the COVID plunge, right? This was the highs. This was a swing high since this plunge, right? This is a new high. The market just printed today. And people are going to recognize this, that we did make a new high here. And so in a conventional means, in a normal circumstances, I would be anticipating, in a normal conventional situation, I would be thinking that, okay, we're at the resistance. We need a pretty good rallies here in the last couple of days. The oscillator is kind of near that overbought level. And so while it makes sense to maybe see a pullback to retest 322, just this vicinity right here, 322, 320, 319 area as a new support, potentially, and then getting this oscillator to reset, maybe retest prior resistance and new support, and then go higher, and then this thing gets up, possibly trying to, you know, buyers attempt to fill this. That would be in a normal, conventional, you know, circumstances that I would say that that's what's going to happen tomorrow and this week. But at this point, we can't rule out the fact that there might be some kind of shenanigan to the upside. I'm talking the shenanigan upside. Some sort of big gap up or something like that. Again, just to make example out of this here, that 270 to 320 run, right? That's a 17% run in about 3 weeks. It all kind of started with that building momentum here on my oscillator. Remember, we got into overbought here. Okay, we got into overbought here. Guess what happened from here to here with another move there? I mean, that move seems like bigger than this gap down. I want to see how much of a move that was. That basically, market was able to squeeze about 5% move when we hit overbought. After we saw the energy build, that bullish momentum built. Do you know what I'm saying? Well, that's kind of what I mean here. Right? That's kind of what I mean. You can see right here that we've been building momentum, right? We built this momentum, and looks like we're near the overbought level. Looks like buyers are tired. Looks like we probably see a pullback and retest some of these support levels. But because of the momentum that we have, because for the first time since that swing high in early June, we made a higher high today, the price clearing that 320 level, right? And that 320 is pretty prominent level because the market stayed below it for about a month and a half, right? This thing was at 322 and then it went to where? Near 300. And then it got back up. And then remember, this level was acting as resistance for Kaisen here, 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 and last Friday wasn't able to break above it. We actually hung around beneath that level. And today we finally did see the price making, clearing, reclaiming 322 and then making higher high. So that's kind of what I mean. We may see a shenanigan move to the upside. And remember the example that I've just done in early June. That's just filling this gap is 2.8% move. I just shown you that market was able to squeeze about from here to here 5% move when this thing already hit overbought. That was overbought right there. We just barely pulled back. We moved sideways, and then with just a little bit of pullback there on the oscillator, and then we had that move, and it squeezed another 5% up move. And we're here. And just going up and filling this gap is only 2.8% move. This was 5% move. So that's kind of what I mean. That I would prepare to see some kind of panic buying sort of FOMO-like move potentially coming this week. If not, we may see a pullback, just like I explained, and then maybe retest some of these levels and then potentially, decide to go up after that. But at this point, things are starting to look bullish here, and the buyers want to make sure to fill this gap, the entirety of it, and kill that selling pressure. And after that gap gets filled, we may see steeper pullback. And I'm not talking 10%, but maybe go up and fill that, and then potentially coming back down to these levels here, 319. So let's say we go up and fill it, right, this week. And pulling back after the gap gets filled at 333. And if this thing pulls back to come back down to 320, 322, that's only 3% pullback, which isn't a huge pullback. And with that, market is gonna cultivate big higher high, pull back to cultivate higher low, and then potentially go for the all-time highs there. But we'll come back tomorrow, we'll re-examine, we'll go from there, right? You guys have a wonderful evening, and good luck trading tomorrow.